Hi folks, welcome back to another Kapo Starky Rugby podcast. Today I've got a great pleasure of my guest being Veronique Landew. Hope I pronounced that okay.
You did indeed. You did very well.
Oh, perfect, great. Veronique is the co-host of the French Rugby Connections podcast. The link to their link tree will be in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. Veronique, welcome along to my channel. Just going to talk about French rugby, but first of all, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you very much. First, I have to rectify, I'm not the co-host. I am the host of French Rugby Connection, the creator and the producer. And I have a wonderful co-host who let me down lately because he's moving houses. Last week he was washing his hair. No, he had things to do. And this week he's moving houses, but he will be back next week. His name is Mike Pierce, and he's a freelance rugby Welsh journalist. So let's put the things straight. But French Rugby Connection was created on the 6th of September last year, and the aim is really to provide some rugby information about le top 14, the Six Nations, and also any other news relating to the rugby world, pertaining to France and to the UK as well, and to the world. So I had some really great guests. I still have to pinch myself sometimes because I got the wonderful rugby legends, Philippe Sella, Gavin Hastings. They're both part of the World of Fame of rugby. Not many players have been inducted. Serge Betson as well. Abdel Benazi.
Oh yeah, great player.
Yeah, Olivier Magne. And the characteristic with all those players is that they played brilliantly in France, but they played and they managed, teams in England. Mm-hmm. So my last, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I spoke with Philippe Saint-André, who obviously was a brilliant captain. I think he captained France 34 times. And then, he went to play for Gloucester. Then he managed Gloucester, Sale. He was very successful with Sale.
Yeah.
And so that's the type of guest that I have. But I enjoy having guests from different walks of life as well. I've had 2 top 14 rugby presidents. So I had Simon Gillam, was a wonderful person, who is the co-president of Brive, which is another top 14 club. And I had Thomas Lombard. Thomas Lombard used to play for...
Oh, yes, I remember him, yes.
Stade Français. And do you remember which rugby team he played in England? I'm checking your knowledge.
Worcester. He played for Worcester, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And he has kept some really good memories from Worcester over there. And now, he's a president of Stade Français Paris. Mm. So it's been great. And I had a few, wonder kids between brackets. I had Max Malins.
Max Malins.
He plays for Bristol Bears, and he played. Yeah. I think he got 5 or 6 caps now for England. Mm-hmm. And I had Hayden Thompson-Tringer, who's doing well at Brive. They have renewed this contract for an additional 2 years.
Okay.
So, yes.
Oh, well, fair high profile of folk you've interviewed then. No, that's fantastic. But mainly I was wanted to talk about obviously the past weekend with, of course, both the Challenge Cup and the Champions Cup, both French clubs winning it. First talk about Montpellier against Leicester. How did you see that game going? And obviously, recently having interviewed Philippe Saint-André, must have been delighted for him. What are your thoughts on how the game went?
Oh gosh, that was wonderful. And I think, I was probably the only French fan not far from Philippe Saint-André and staff and so on. But towards the end of the night, even if I kept saying allez a few times, I couldn't speak, I did lose my voice. Mm-hmm. But seriously speaking, it was a wonderful occasion because it meant a lot for Montpellier. And I was really rooting for Montpellier, not only because I'm French, mm-hmm. but also because they've had a terrible and tough year in the top 14. And they've only started ramping up since Philippe André took over the reins
Yeah.
of Montpellier. So before he was the director of rugby, so he was very much in his ivory tower, managing business relationship and so on. And then there was some restructuring, let's put it that way. Xavier Carbajosa was told to leave, and the owner Mohamed Altrad asked Philippe Saint-André to step in and to define exactly what they wanted, from Montpellier. So Philippe Saint-André, Jean-Baptiste Elissade, and I forgot his name. I saw him as well. Mazin, I will come back. Azam, he will get back to me anyway. Sat in a room. They decided, what would be their objective, and say, right, okay, we need to ramp up. And since January, they've been winning. I think they won 8 out of the 10 matches, and they are ramping up because they were really in a danger zone. Even now tonight, they are playing against Bordeaux, and they need to win. I think they only have, they need to win, and the next match as well to feel more comfortable, to stay in the top 14. But anyway, that's a long story. To cut a long story short, my impression of the match, it was really good result outcome for Montpellier. They kept their head cool. Because a few times, for instance, Guillaume Guirado got the yellow card, and I thought, oh no, not again. And but they were clinical towards the end, and they really believed in themselves.
Yeah.
And the experiences showed off, and André Pollard, I think, went into the pitch, towards the end, and I think it did help them as well. So really, really pleased. It's a good feel. It's a feel-good stories in terms of rugby story. I was very pleased for them. And for Leicester, well, it was good that they managed to get to the final, to be honest with you, because if you look at where they were last year in the Gallagher Premiership, they were not in a healthy position. So they are ramping up thanks to Steve Borswick, I think.
Yeah. No, I mean, Leicester are definitely on the improvement in recent times. I mean, there a lot of Leicester fans feel like they're getting. I'm not saying they're going to get back to where they were in the early 2000s. Obviously, we're winning cups, but yeah, just on Montpellier, really, as you say, with obviously struggling relegation earlier this season, they've got a bit of obviously a super rich, but from what I've researched, a bit of an eccentric owner, to say the least. He loves to hire and fire and throw about a bit with the coaches. Of course, Vern, we as Scotland know, Vern Cotter went there. He tried to build something, but then the coach didn't favour him. Then he moved on. Then obviously Xavier Garbajosa. Then Sant-André's, as you say, he's sort of definitely improved them. Got to the Challenge Cup final, but it has been quite a turnaround, because I would have said, because even though they beat, I think it was the last 16 or something, they beat Treviso, and I thought they were absolutely terrible, even though they won it, and then they improved as the tournament went on, and then sort of managed to get to the final. So that's just my gauging of how Montpellier have done that. It's been a bit of a process for Philippe Saint-André and the other coaches, but they've sort of found their place a bit now, and they're looking like they're on the way up, with obviously still got to absolutely secure safety in the top 14.
Absolutely, and it's all about defining what the culture of the club was, because if you look at the club, Montpellier was founded in 1985, so it's a very young club considering to the likes of Racing 92 or Stade Français Paris or Toulouse. So I read in L'Équipe that that Philippe Saint-André was saying they got a new ethos, which is discipline, integrity, hard work. Because if you look at the calibers of players in that team, you've got amazing. You have André Pollard, he was a world-winning champion. Unfortunately, he got injured when he played against Racing in September, October. And you got a plethora of players, Paul Williamson, for instance, who played for les Bleus and many others. But there was something that didn't really quite fit in. So I think Philippe and his staff, managed to put the oil on the wheel. They find the magic potion. And to be honest with you, it was a question of pride as well for those players to win for Montpellier, because I think when you invest so much money into Montpellier, as a club owner, Moed Altrad, he has been doing for a long time. I think they won in 2016. He wanted to see some ROI. I speak like a marketeer now, like a businessman. Wanted to see some return on investment. So it's very pleasing. It's part of they made history there, and one thing I will remember. I will stay anchored in my brain is when the ref, whistled the last game, when it was the end of the game. I saw Philippe Saint-André and his staff, and followed by Moed Altrad, running. Still walking to the pitch and congratulating the players, and it was wonderful to see the ebullience and the relief and the joy of seeing Montpellier, lifting that trophy. And it meant a lot as well, especially for 3 person, I think, Moed Altrad, because he has invested lots of his time and financial investment in Montpellier as well. And also, Altrad is the one who is sponsoring the Les Bleus t-shirt. The t-shirt, you can see Altrad, on the Les Bleus jersey now. So he's got, a real stake in French rugby. Philippe Saint-André, because I think last time he won was probably in 2009, something, in terms, so it was good for him. And also Guillaume Guirado, played for the French team, which was unfortunately, I think it was nothing to do with management. I think there were lots of big egos, maybe in that team, and we had some good and some bad and some ugly, in that era. But now it's a golden generation.
Yeah, no, well, I was going to get onto the French national team a little bit later on, which obviously I absolutely can do. But yeah, as I say, like with Montpellier, we've said. Club that's invested a lot. The players they've had, they should be nowhere near like scrapping at the bottom of the top 14. They should be at the very least, like, I think, middle, competing towards the top. But they've always, as you said, recent years they've had the money, and they've spent on the players. But in terms of gelling them together as a team, just from an outsider looking in, I'd say like they haven't got the mix right. But it's only in recent few months they seem to be getting that a bit better. But well done to them, absolutely.
Yes. And I think it's thanks to the hard work of the 3 musketeers, of Elissad, Azam, I think his name is Azam, and
Olivier Azam, yes.
Olivier Azam, yes, that's it. So I think they did something right. A bit that reminds me of the Saracen stories, when in the end of in the 90s when they were, or 2000, when they were they didn't, they came over, I think. So you had Boswick, McCall, and I can't remember who, they sat in the room, say, right, okay, we need to tidy up the team. We need to get rid of this person and let's come up with an ethos. Let's make this club a piece of history. So it's more or less, something's good that's happening in Montpellier. It's nice. It's a good feel story.
Yeah, absolutely. And onto that, to a club who are obviously very well established in Europe, Toulouse winning their 5th European Champions Cup. What did you make of that game against La Rochelle? From a more neutral standpoint, I didn't think it was the best of quality of matches in the first half. The red card for Botti of La Rochelle did swing the momentum of the game, but Toulouse, like in the first 20, 30 minutes after half time, they really put their stamp on the game. La Rochelle came back into it towards the end, and one could argue they're maybe unlucky not to get another opportunity to at least have a shot to try and get a try that would have very least leveled it. What were your thoughts on the game?
I agree with you to a certain extent. It was kind of a slow game. It wasn't that excitable, and the red card change. That game, it did galvanize more La Rochelle, but La Rochelle were really, really, really going for it. They really believed in themselves in gaining that star, that elusive first star. I was rooting for La Rochelle because I thought, you know what, I want Toulouse. Come on, they won 4 times. Come on, don't be so greedy. It's time for La Rochelle, and I really like the story of La Rochelle because it's a team which had up and down in terms of being in the top 14, and they've only recently joined the top 14 since 2014. 6-7 years ago, and right now they are second in the top 14, and Toulouse being the first one. So it was very much like a Toulouse a top 14 tournament. But in terms of game, it wasn't. It was more interesting than the kicking game that Leicester Tigers, used a lot on Friday evening, which was very boring, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't like that style of rugby either. So we're with you there.
But one thing that you can admire, and man, there will be lots of bruises. They would be so is the fierceness, the brutality of the game of Les Rochelais, of Stade Rochelle against Toulouse, and even Dupont. As a fly half, he's not supposed to do that, but apparently, I look at the stats, he tackled 15 times.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, honestly, that man's like, for a scrum half, he's an absolute beast. I mean, folk just like the average, like Joe, like maybe doesn't watch rugby that much, would more look at like just what he does with the ball and think, oh, he's a pretty good player. But the work rate he does off the ball is just absolutely unbelievable. The amount of I don't think I can remember seeing a scrum half who just shoot. He just is on the line, like he's literally on the defensive line and he's shooting up, because normally the scrum half's role is they play the sweeper in behind and they let everyone else do the blitz defense. But he's like, right on it with the blitz defense. He's pushing up. He's leading the line. He's just not. I just think he's, in my opinion, like I if you watched any of my content in the last few months, I can't say enough positive words about Antoine Dupont. I mean, I just think he's absolutely a phenomenal rugby player all round.
And I'm very pleased to say I spotted him before everybody, I like to say, in 2018. So I saw him playing, in around 2017. And in 2018, Jacques Brunel took over from Guy Lopez. He started in January, I think December 2017. And I met Jacques Brunel at the Six Nations launch in London in January 24th of January 2018. And I told him at the end of the interview, there is a press interview and so on, with kind of stuff. As he was leaving, I was sitting next to one of my friend, AFP friend, Agence France Presse friend, and I asked I mentioned to, I didn't ask actually, I mentioned to Jacques Brunel that I really like Antoine Dupont. I would love to see him play more often in Les Bleus. Say, okay, I will remember this, but no, but it's, it wasn't that well known. I think he only came to the fore, from last year, really when he was unknown, and suddenly say, wow, who's that kid? Who's that wonder kid? It's one of the best. Is the best scrum half in the world. And even Aaron Smith did say that he learns some techniques from Dupont, which is a very, very great homage. And
no, I was just going to say, that's something coming from Aaron Smith, considering, like, as we know, with his reputation and all he's achieved in the game. But I mean, like Dupont, he looks like one of those players, like every time he has the ball. I mean, although there's lots of arguments that come out like now. It's like, oh, he's not won a World Cup yet. Oh, he's not won a Six Nations yet. But I mean, I just kind of look at it and think, well, Jonah Lomu never won a World Cup, and he's considered one of the all-time greats of the game. So I don't think it's like as much to do with like, you always have to win a trophy to be, the best in your position in the world. I just think, but the way France are going, who knows? It could be a World Cup winner in 2 years' time.
Yes, absolutely. But before we finish on the game, it was well done. I have to say, well done to Toulouse. They did well. But I have to admire the strength, the tenacity of La Rochelle, who played really, really hard for an hour with 14 men. And I think the score could have changed. It was very, very close. I mean, West, unfortunately, only achieved 50% of his kicks. Out of 6 kicks, he kicked successfully 3 kicks. Whereas Tamak was...
So sorry to interrupt you. I think it was 3 he missed, and he kicked 4 from 7, something like that. I think that was his kicking percentage.
But I think it was 6. Maybe you are right in terms of 7, and that did put a dampener, unfortunately. But c'est la vie. So it would have been nice to see Pellissier, coming from the bench, but it didn't happen. But I was watching now again. I was very lucky. I was sitting very close to Ronan O'Gara and the owner and so on. And I mean, not close. The next aisle, if you know what I mean. Not sitting next to them, but I could see the expression of Ronan. He remained cool as a cucumber during the game, which I find incredible. But a few times he did swear a few bit, I think, regarding a potential yellow card that should have been given to.
Yeah, there was a few times that was caught on the camera, and I was just remember jokingly saying, "Oh, what's he saying in French there?"
But you know what? His French is very good. But well done to Toulouse. I'm very disappointed for La Rochelle. Hopefully they will. I really hope they will go and win that top 14. And I saw as well. I saw poor Greg Aldred completely in tears and heartbroken, sitting on the pitch. Being consoled by Dupont. So that's that was a nice gesture from Dupont. But that's what I mean. They were so close. It wasn't. It would have been 3-18. Yes, fair enough. But it was that close. And towards the end, it could have changed. They were nearly there. Never mind. Next year.
Well, the thing is, obviously, La Rochelle in general, they're very much going in the right direction. I think. Ronan O'Gara definitely going there is putting them on the up, because I mean, you've got to think of it like a couple of years ago, with regards to competing for European competition, no one was even talking about La Rochelle at all. I think last season was the first time they ever got to the knockout stages of the Heineken Cup, European Champions Cup ever. So they're definitely on the right track. So in Ronan O'Gara, they've signed up for another couple of years at least. So they're absolutely going to be there or thereabouts, I think, for the next couple of years at least. So they're very much a club moving forward. I understand losing a final. No one likes to lose a final. They'll be disappointed, but I don't think they should be disheartened at all. And generally, I think as I said, going in the right direction. So no worries there.
Absolutely. And if you look at the players, the caliber, you got Will Skelton, Brice Dulin, you got Botia. You got some really good ones as well. So it's
absolutely. So but just if there's any La Rochelle fans watching, I don't think they've got much to be worried about, unless I don't see this happening, but it's some miracle if Andy Farrell leaves the Ireland job and Ireland go hunting for Ronan O'Gara, because he said he is interested in that. But I think it's not. I think it won't be the right time for either party to go for him yet. But maybe after the next World Cup. Who knows? We'll see.
Who knows?
Yeah. But we're going to go into that, sort of just onto the French national team, which we touched on a little bit earlier. Where do you think the French national team are right now? And obviously the summer tour to Australia, tied in, I think it's about 12-day gap between their first test against Australia and the top 14 final. So what are your thoughts there?
It's a renaissance for the French rugby. Mm-hmm. It's really positive, to see them, at the top. They're nearly there. Twice, they lost against England, unfortunately. The Six Nations, the COVID Cup, or the Autumn Cup. But it's their long-term objective is to win the World Cup. That's what they are aiming for. And France was 3 times finalist. So 3 times the bridesmaid, but it's about time that they become the bride. And it is in France as well in 2023. So amazing. I hope I will be there. No, I should be there. I will be there, definitely.
Yeah. Definitely, as I said, on the right track with the youngsters coming through. As I said, Dupont, Ntamak, many others as well. Aldrit we mentioned. Charles Olivon's looking a very good captain, I have to say. But no, overall, do you think though there is still a problem in terms of maybe there's a bit of a rift still between the French top 14 and the French national team, because there's still obviously a lot of talks with regards to, how much power the French broadcasters have for the top 14 and how much of it does that affect the national team. And the last couple of years, I think it has been getting a bit better, but do you still think there's some problems there?
I think it's getting better because I think there is a new person in charge. I forgot his name. I think it's René Boucastel. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's been some election, so there's been a change of management, and Laporte and that person are working very well. So they know each other. But I think it's the same in England, for instance. There are some teasing issues between the Gallagher Premiership and the RFU as well, because there is a question of, for instance, Saracens boys, missing some valuable time with their teammates. I mean, maybe not this year, but last year when they were still in the Premiership. So I think it's not unusual. The only system that works well, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's the Irish system. I think they have some youth here.
Yeah, with the youth in the school system.
Yeah,
I say it does work well there, but at the same time, then you've got basically more or less all the players going to Leinster, and the rest of the not that there aren't players that coming through at Ulster or Connacht or Munster, but they seem to be all going to Leinster, and then it's a case of Leinster have got too many players and they're not being spread out enough or something like that. I mean, there's probably going to be folk in Irish rugby are going to be a bit more versed in the ins and outs of that than I am, but that's just what I've gauged of it. And it's also a big reason why, of course, Leinster are successful that they are in the Pro 14, even though that's in terms of caliber of tournament, it's not on par with the Gallagher Premiership or the top 14 right now. It's just
I agree with you. It's probably in terms of championship, European championship, I would say top 14 is at the top because it's very fierce, very well.
Yeah.
There is a cap. There is a salary cap. People are not. There is a salary cap. Yes. I can't remember what it is, but there is definitely one.
Yeah, sorry, that's my kind of thing, because I know there's been that with England as well, but with France, they've said there's a salary cap, but I've never been sure where it lies because their owners seem to be, have lots of money and have so much power. It's so yeah, but
no, there is definitely one. That's why I think in Stade Français they had to review some of their staff, some of the players, and loan them and so on. So it's much stricter than it was. And in terms of competition, I think Premiership Gallagher is quite tough as well. But then Pro 14, when you play against, I don't know. So it's it's not the same fight. It's not the same caliber of rugby in my humble opinion. Maybe some people will disagree, I suppose, but yeah, it's a pity you can't really see top 14 games. So yes, but you can listen to my podcast, French Rugby Connection, and you will hear the latest news on top 14. Within half an hour, 40 minutes. So that's quite good. But in terms of relationship between LNR and which is a French, which is equivalent to the RFU. For your listeners, and the Les Bleus, the French union, there were some issues there, especially during the Autumn Cup, because poor guys, Fabien Gattier, he had to select two different teams, one team A and one team B. But the beauty of it is that we nearly won the Autumn Cup.
I was just going to say that still did very well, considering it was the second team against the England first team, to come so close. I still think France should have won it because I think that penalty right at the end of the game, just where England got their try that equalised, went to extra time. I didn't think it was a penalty, and it was given against France, and then England obviously went on, and I think it was Luke Cowan-Dickey scored the try that levelled it, and but. So I could say the French second team were unlucky, but
having said that, he really put to the fore, some players that Fabien Gattier didn't really think about, such as Brice Dulin. Brice Dulin, if you think about him, he's 31 years old. Yeah. He's one of the oldies in that team because the average is 24 years old. And other players that were not considered, and so now they've got a place in the in Les Bleus, which is so, from a negative, you turn something positive, and it was a great show. And I really like the display they showed, in Twickenham in November. But yes.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. But you still think, though, with the national team, there is still that lacking of but there is still that inconsistency there when it comes to discipline. Like, for example, games against Ireland, where they're hanging on 2 points at the end, they can really keep it together, and their defense just held out. And in the end, they did enough and won that game. But then on the flip side of that, you got the game against Scotland. Thanks to Bryce Doolan for this, by the way. The game against Scotland, where even though they wouldn't have won the championship, even if they got the bonus point at the time, and all Doolan had to do was basically kick it into touch, and then at the end he didn't, and then Scotland won the penalty and ended up. You still think, what I'm getting at? You still think there's a problem with the discipline there, inconsistency?
It has been rectified. So you are referring to red card given to Mohamed Ouas, when France played in.
Sorry, I was referring to more this year's Six Nations, obviously, again, as I said,
okay.
Against Ireland, where at the end Ireland were putting pressure on them, and then France's defence held out, and then whereas against Scotland, if Brice Doolan, had just kicked the ball out, France would have won the game, but he didn't, and then Scotland in the end went in and got the try at the end from Van der Merwe. So
I think, so you can put that a little bit of lack of experience, maybe. The more they play, the better they become. And Fabien Gattier and his team is very well of them. That's why they're going to play in Australia, in the end of June, beginning of July. So they're still learning a lot. But from a discipline point of view, I'm very pleased to say that Jérôme Garcès is no longer a referee, and is part of the staff.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So he's giving them some.
That'll be a big help for them then.
Definitely, it's about learning, how not to lose some points. But I think there was a time. I think I watched them play once. They lost like 14 points. So now if they lose, they're under 10. It's okay. But they're learning. They are not the finished product, but they are getting close to the finished product. If you look at the amount of caps they had when they played against England, they had like, I don't know, maybe altogether the whole team. I can't. I think maybe.
Sorry, talk about England at the start of 2020.
Yes, when they played, I think that 70 cap, or even when they played against Wales. Do you remember that game? That wonderful game, France versus Wales.
This year's one.
Yes.
I do remember it well. Yes.
Because what happened was something magical, something in the last 10 minutes, they scored, was it 14 points or something like that? That was amazing. Yeah. I have to say my co-host he didn't speak to me for 3 days after that.
And then Scotland did it to France the week later, which I personally was very happy about. So
oh well.
But that's the thing, though. I think going forward to the World Cup, I do think France do need at least one Grand Slam for the next 2 Six Nations, or at the very least one Six Nations title, because yes. I mean, as we know, the Six Nations, it's such a competitive. It's getting more and more difficult to win a Grand Slam for any of the teams in it. So, do you think that as well? That
100%. I think that's within the psyche of the staff in Les Bleus as well. They're very aware that psychologically it would be good for the France. For France to win, one major trophy like Six Nations, anyway, it's only Six Nations to win from a Euro point of view, or even when they go to Australia. Because if you look at the stat as well, I think England won in 2003. But, they came from a very, very bad shape. I think 1991, 1999, then, they look, they analyze everything. And I think they won the Six Nations, was it in 2002 or 2003? I can't remember, but they needed that win, to get their boost. They were so sure of themselves.
Yeah, it was the Grand Slam then, because England had won. I think they'd won 3 of the previous, the last 5 nations. No, pardon me, I'll stand myself that they won 2 of the previous 3 Six Nations before 2003, but they hadn't won the Grand Slam. They 2000, obviously, they lost to Scotland in a rain-drenched Murrayfield, and then they lost to Ireland in Dublin in 2001, and then France beat them in 2002, and France won the Grand Slam that year. But it was really the Grand Slam thing, as we're saying, that was really the thing that they needed to put to bed, and then, as you're saying, that gave them the confidence for the rest of 2003 to go on to win that World Cup that year.
So so I think, you know, next year should be the one. that's what I keep saying every year. Oh well, it will be next year. But no, I'm very positive that France will finally reap its rewards, and you know, and lift that the Six Nation trophy, because it's been 10 years, 11 years since France won, you know, the Six Nation. I think the last time was in 2011 on the Marc Livremont, and afterwards it wasn't.
There's a flashback. So I was probably going to know I was going to end on, like, you know, where you think French rugby is going right now and optimistic for the future.
It's extremely positive, and the fact that, you know, obviously the 2023 Rugby World Cup is going to take place in France, you know, brings an extra dimension. You know, when France played against England in, I think during Six Nations, I think they were like 17 million. I mean, the audience for TV. Don't correct me on that figure, but the audience was spectacular, and it's very unusual because they were shown in prime time as well on a Friday evening. And I think France is in a very good place. It's got the right person on board. You've got the statistician and the technician, you know, Fabien Gattier, who have massive experience in managing teams, and also his staff as well. You know, the players he has are young. They have, you know, they are very humble. There is no, like I was saying in the 2000s, I think some players may have suffered from egos. You know, they would go, okay, I go there, I get my check and bye. You know, so for them, I think there's more passion. Maybe I'm wrong regarding some players before their time. You know, maybe. Not all players were like that who were playing against under Saint-André and so on, but there were some players who had some massive egos and so on. There was a bit of riff-raff as well, but with that team, he's very lucky. He's got some passionate people. He's got good pedigree. He's got Penaud, whose father was Damien Penaud. He's got Émile Tamac, and he's got some brand new players such as, you know, Dupont and others. So it's very, very refreshing, and they want it. They're going for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've always thought the main thing, as I touched on a bit earlier, was the discipline factor. I think if this and the consistency in keeping discipline, I thought if France can get that right, like they'll be a team, like, you know, so they just be more or less unstoppable for anyone. But I mean, there's, as you're saying, past couple of years, there's maybe a few learning curves still to get there, and some creases that need ironing out. But, you know, overall, I think, you know, France could be. I mean, I think all rugby fans everywhere should be like quite frightened of playing them in 2023 if they keep going as they are on the up. And as I said earlier, I think Charles Olivon's a very good captain, just with the way he plays and also the way he speaks as well, both to referees and just when, you know, I see him on the pitch and talking to other players. I think he's definitely seems like a good captain, and from what I'm seeing, like if folk who talk about him, he seems like a good guy as well. So you know, sort of think. And you know,
there is a little bit of Scottish in the French team as well.
Yes,
did you
Gregory Aldrit, his father's from Stirling, so
exactly. Oh, you know that I thought I would have to learn something, but it looks like your rugby knowledge is spectacular as well.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate the compliment, and likewise with yourself. I think that's a nice note to end it on. Thank you very much, Veronique, for coming on. Much appreciated. And thank you very much for watching, listening. Wherever you're tuning into this podcast, take care of yourself, guys, and I'll catch you later on.
And don't forget to listen to my podcast, which is called French Rugby Connections. the one with connection. Don't forget that, because it's all about making connections in rugby and in life. And French Rugby Connections with Veronique Landew and Mike Pierce.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said at the start of this video, that link will be in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. And I'll put the link elsewhere, whether this podcast goes up on Spotify or Apple Podcast, all etc. Pardon me. Okay, thanks so much for watching, guys. Take care of yourself.
Bye. Take care. Bye. Bye.